The blistering light was unbearable. Lyra pressed herself against the cold, cracked surface of the rocky cliff, struggling to breathe. Each second in the sun's deadly rays felt like fire ripping through her skin, searing deeper than any wound she had ever known. The air shimmered with heat, and the horizon around her burned with a cruel, merciless glow. She had never been this vulnerable before. Her slender fingers dug into the jagged rock as she crawled forward, her vision blurring with pain. Behind her, the desert-like expanse stretched endlessly, a vast wasteland of scorched earth and shattered stone. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. The sun was relentless, its rays cutting through her body, threatening to burn her alive. Lyra's species had always been adapted to harsh environments, but something had changed. The sun, once a source of life, had become a merciless enemy. Something in its radiation was mutating, becoming more lethal by the day. Her people called it the Burning Curse, and she was its latest victim. A sudden tremor in the ground made her head jerk up. Through the haze, she saw movement, a silhouette against the shimmering heat waves. At first, she thought it was a mirage, a trick of her burning mind. But no, the figure was real, stepping carefully toward her, Ethan, the human. He moved with caution but determination, his eyes locked on her. She had heard stories of humans before, tales spun by her elders about their unpredictable nature, their stubbornness and their strange biology. But she had never met one. Now here he was, walking toward her, as if drawn by some invisible thread. Lyra wanted to recoil, to scream at him to stay away. Her instincts told her to trust no one, not after what had happened, but her body, weakened by the sun's fury, betrayed her. Ethan knelt beside her without hesitation, his hands gentle but firm as he checked her pulse. "You're burning up," he said quietly, his voice calm but edged with urgency. "I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to help you." Lyra's chest tightened. Could she trust him? Did she even have a choice? The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the rocky wasteland. Time was running out. Ethan tore a piece of cloth from his shirt and pressed it against her burning skin, trying to shield her from the lethal rays. She felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through her body, not the sun's fire, but his touch, soft and steady. A spark of hope flickered in the darkness, but just as quickly pain surged through her veins. Her eyes flew open wide with shock. "You don't understand," she gasped, struggling to speak. "If you keep touching me—" "Don't fight it," Ethan said, cutting her off gently. "I can feel it too. Something about you. You're not like anything I've seen." Lyra's breath hitched. He was right. She wasn't like anything he had seen. Her biology was alien, complex, and fragile in ways humans could hardly imagine. Minutes passed, the sun's last rays slipping away, as Ethan carefully lifted her to his back. "We have to get out of the open," he said. "There's a shelter nearby. You'll be safe there." Safe. The word felt foreign on Lyra's tongue. As Ethan carried her, she glanced back toward the horizon. Dark shapes moved in the distance. Figures, racing toward them, driven by purpose and fury. Her people, they wanted her back. But why? And would they let her live? Ethan didn't stop. His pace quickened, driven by something more than urgency, a determination to save her, even if he didn't fully understand why. They disappeared into a narrow canyon, just as the first stars began to blink in the twilight sky. Inside, the shadowed refuge. Ethan laid Lyra down gently. Her skin still burned beneath his hands, but the warmth of his touch seemed to slow the relentless spread of pain. "Tell me your name," he said softly. Lyra hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra. Lyra." Ethan repeated, as if grounding himself to the reality of the moment. "I'm Ethan." Silence hung between them, filled with questions neither dared to ask. Outside, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. the relentless footsteps of Lyra's people closing in like a storm. Lyra closed her eyes, battling the fire inside her, desperate to hold on, because only a human touch could save her now. Cliffhanger. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the canyon. Ethan's eyes snapped open as Lyra's body tensed. Through the shadows, glowing eyes appeared, figures stepping into the refuge. The hunt had found them, or bidden healing. The glowing eyes filled the shadows like predatory stars, their owners stepping closer with silent, deliberate grace. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he quickly moved to shield Lyra, who lay weakened, against the cool stone of the canyon wall. The burning pain in her skin hadn't lessened. If anything, it seemed worse in the dimness, deprived of even the dying sun's fading light. The figures approached cautiously but confidently. Their armor shimmered faintly, a sleek, otherworldly design that marked them as Lyra's people. They spoke in low, urgent tones, their voices almost musical yet harsh, full of reprimand and command. Ethan's mind raced. He didn't recognize the language, but the tone was unmistakable. They were here to capture Lyra. The realization hit him like a blow. "Stay behind me," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible as he stood protectively over her. His eyes met Lyra's, who gave a weak nod of trust despite the pain twisting her features. The leader of the group stepped forward. His posture was rigid, his eyes cold but flickering with something unspoken. Regret? Duty? Ethan couldn't tell. Without warning, the alien raised a hand, and a device on his wrist emitted a high-pitched pulse that rippled through the air. Lyra groaned, clutching her chest as if the pulse stabbed at her very core. "No!" Ethan shouted, stepping forward. But the alien squad was ready. They moved in, surrounding Ethan swiftly. "You don't understand what she is," the leader said in halting English, his voice thick with an accent unfamiliar but strangely comprehensible. "She is our burden, and our curse." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Then why hurt her? Why chase her like prey?" The leader's expression flickered. "Because if she falls, our people die. Her condition spreads. She is the beginning of the end." Confusion and dread mixed inside Ethan. "What condition? What are you talking about?" Lyra coughed, the harsh air burning her throat. With great effort, she forced herself upright. "It's the sun. The radiation. It's killing me. My people, my whole species, are suffering. I tried to escape to find help, but they won't let me live." Ethan looked at her, then back at the approaching soldiers. "You're running because you're sick. And you think I can help?" Lyra's eyes were pleading. "You're the only one. Your touch, it slows the burning." Ethan swallowed hard. The strange warmth he'd felt when touching her was no illusion. He didn't understand how or why, but he couldn't ignore it. "You saved her life," the leader said quietly, stepping closer. "But the others will not understand. They fear the change. They want to destroy it." Ethan looked at Lyra's pale, trembling form, and then back at the soldiers advancing. "Then we don't have much time." He gripped the rough fabric of his shirt, tugging it free to tear strips to dress her wounds. As he worked, Lyra's breathing grew shallow, the burning sensation spreading faster. The leader watched silently, but made no move to stop Ethan. Perhaps he understood that for now, healing was the only option. Hours passed like this, tense, silent, except for Ethan's soft reassurances and Lyra's shallow breaths. Outside, the alien soldiers set up a cautious perimeter, unwilling to abandon their hunt, but respecting the fragile truce. In the flickering shadows, Ethan and Lyra shared more than pain. Words flowed, hesitant but earnest. "Why did you come?" "Here," Ethan asked softly. "Why risk everything?" Lyra's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Because if I die, everything dies. Our sun has changed, become toxic. The curse spreads like wildfire. The elders refuse to believe it's real, or they refuse to act. I had to find a cure, something to save us. Ethan's mind reeled. He'd read about radiation sickness before, but nothing like this. An entire species threatened by their own. Star, it was heartbreaking, terrifying. You're not alone, Ethan said, touching her hand lightly. I'll help you, whatever it takes. The warmth from his touch calmed her visibly, the harsh lines of pain softening for a moment. Suddenly, alarms blared from the soldiers' equipment. The perimeter had been breached. They're coming, the leader said grimly. We must move, now. Ethan lifted Lyra carefully. Where will we go? There is a sanctuary, the leader replied, but it is far and dangerous. The group moved quickly through the rocky terrain, shadows swallowed by night. The air was thick with tension, every rustle and distant howl a threat. As they reached the sanctuary, a hidden cave network deep beneath the planet's surface, Ethan caught his breath. The place was unlike anything he'd imagined, glowing, with bioluminescent plants and strange humming technology embedded in the walls. Inside, Lyra's condition worsened again. Ethan's hands trembled as he pressed them against her skin, willing the warmth to soothe the relentless burn. The leader watched with a mixture of hope and despair. Your touch is the only thing slowing her, but it cannot stop the disease. Entirely, Ethan clenched his jaw. Then we find a way to stop it together. As the night deepened, Ethan and Lyra shared stories of their worlds, hers filled with ancient secrets and fading hope, his with the stubborn will to survive and protect. Despite their differences, something powerful blossomed between them, a fragile alliance born in pain and necessity, but danger was never far. Outside, unseen enemies plotted to capture Lyra and end the hope she represented. Cliffhanger. As Ethan and Lyra drifted into a fragile sleep, an explosion rocked the sanctuary. The cave trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. Footsteps thundered closer. Enemies had found them. The fight for survival was far from over. Shadows in the sanctuary. The ground shook violently, dust cascading from the cave ceiling as Ethan scrambled to shield Lyra. The explosion echoed through the cavernous sanctuary, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps and the clatter of alien weaponry. Ethan's heart pounded like a war drum. Get ready, he whispered, tightening his grip on Lyra's frail form. Her skin still burned where the sun's rays had scarred her, but the warmth from his touch kept the worst pain at bay. For now, the leader of the alien soldiers, Kale, moved swiftly, barking orders in their harsh tongue. Though Ethan didn't understand every word, the urgency was clear. They had to defend this refuge or die trying. The intruders were relentless, shadows slipping into the cave's mouth like ghosts, weapons blazing with deadly energy. Ethan could barely believe the technology in use. Pulse rifles that shimmered with blue light, shields that hummed with invisible force, and strange devices that scrambled the mind. Amid the chaos, Ethan's human instincts took over. He dragged Lyra behind a jagged rock formation, scanning for anything that could help. His hands trembled, not just from fear, but from the overwhelming responsibility resting on his shoulders. This alien woman's survival might determine the fate of an entire species. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the gunfire. Lyra's eyes flew open, wide with terror. "They're here! To kill me!" she gasped. "To end the cure and the hope." Ethan's jaw clenched. "We won't let that happen." The firefight raged for what felt like hours. Ethan, despite being outmatched in weaponry, fought fiercely, using every scrap of ingenuity and strength he had. Kale and his soldiers fought alongside him, but their numbers were thinning. In the midst of battle, Ethan noticed something odd. The invaders weren't just soldiers. Some wore the insignia of Lyra's own people, rebels perhaps, or extremists, who believed that her condition was too dangerous to survive. Why would your own people want you dead? Ethan shouted over the noise. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. Fear, denial. The disease changes us, changes everything. Some would rather destroy the source than face the truth. That truth weighed heavily on Ethan. He looked down at Lyra, her skin flickering faintly with alien light as the infection battled the healing warmth of his touch. She was caught between two worlds, one that feared her and one that depended on her survival. Suddenly, a bright flare shot across the cave, striking Cale's side. The leader fell with a grunt, clutching his wound. Panic surged through Ethan. If Cale died, they'd lose their only chance at survival here. Ethan rushed to Cale's side, pulling him behind cover. "Stay with me," he urged. Cale's eyes met his, fierce but fading. "Find the source," Cale gasped. "Stop the sun from killing us all." The words were cryptic but urgent. Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. Whatever this disease was, it was linked to the sun, and it was spreading fast. With renewed resolve, Ethan glanced at Lyra. "We have to move deeper into the sanctuary. Find whatever Cale meant." The cavern opened into a vast chamber filled with strange humming machines, ancient technology far beyond Ethan's understanding. Screens flickered with data in a language alien, yet somehow familiar. In the center, a glowing orb pulsed with a sickly light. Lyra approached it slowly, her fingers tracing the surface. "This is our lifeline," she murmured. "A device to shield us from the sun's deadly rays, but it's failing." Ethan stepped closer, studying the orb. "Can it be fixed?" Lyra shook her head weakly. "Only with a rare element, something, found only in the sun's corona. Without it, the shield will collapse." The revelation hit Ethan like a thunderclap. To save Lyra and her people, they would have to risk traveling closer to the very sun that was killing her. Before he could respond, the cave shook again. The attackers were regrouping, preparing for another assault. "We don't have time," Ethan said grimly. "We need a plan." Lyra's eyes met his, filled with a desperate hope. "I need you, Ethan. Without your touch, I won't survive the journey." His hand found hers instinctively, the familiar warmth calming both of them. "Then we do this together, whatever it takes." As the enemies surged forward, Ethan and Lyra prepared for a fight that would test the limits of their strength, trust, and hope. Cliffhanger. Just as they brace for the next wave of attackers, Lyra's skin begins to glow uncontrollably. The infection is spreading faster than ever. Ethan realizes the warmth from his touch might not be enough. There's something else she needs, something terrifying that could change everything. The solar crucible. Lyra's skin shimmered violently, pulsing with alien light that danced like flames on the edge of a wildfire. Ethan's heart raced. The warmth from his touch, once a soothing balm against the cruel sun's curse, was now a fragile thread barely holding her together. "She's deteriorating faster," Kyle groaned from his spot against the wall, clutching his side. His voice was rough, edged with pain and urgency. "The infection, it's evolving." Ethan tightened his grip on Lyra's hand, desperation fueling his resolve. "What can we do? How do we stop it?" Lyra's breath came in sharp gasps. "There's one way, but it's risky. We must journey to the solar crucible, the sun's corona itself. Only there can we find the element to repair the shield and halt the disease." The solar crucible, the very heart of the sun. A place no living being should ever dare approach. Ethan swallowed hard. "That means leaving the sanctuary, facing the sun's deadly heat directly?" "Yes," Lyra whispered. "And without the shield fully restored, it will kill me before we even reach it." Cale grimaced. "But it's the only hope." The room fell into a heavy silence. Ethan's mind raced with questions and fears, but one thing was clear. To Save Lyra and her people. He had to be willing to walk into hell itself. We'll do it, Ethan said firmly. Tell me what we need. Lyra smiled weakly, gratitude flickering in her eyes. Thank you, Ethan. Your touch has kept me alive this long, but the crucible, it demands more than warmth. Kyle coughed violently, his strength fading. There's an ancient ship hidden beyond the sanctuary. It's equipped for the journey. We must find it before the attackers return. Ethan nodded. Then let's move. The journey to the ship was treacherous. The sanctuary, once a haven, now felt like a cage under siege. Shadows lurked around every corner, and Ethan's senses sharpened to every sound. The scrape of a claw, the whisper of enemy movement. When they finally reached the ancient vessel, Ethan was struck by its design, sleek and alien, yet crafted, with an artistry that spoke of a long-lost civilization. Lyra's fingers traced the hull reverently. This ship, she said softly, was built for survival against the sun's wrath. It holds the key to our future. Inside, the control room was a labyrinth of glowing panels and holographic displays. Ethan marveled at the technology, but there was no time for awe. Lyra and Kyle immediately set to work, interfacing with the ship's systems. Hours passed, and the sun outside blazed hotter, its rays threatening to breach the sanctuary's fragile shield. Lyra's condition worsened. Her skin flickered erratically. Pain etched on her face. Ethan refused to leave her side. His hands never left her, channeling warmth and comfort in a silent promise that he would protect her, no matter the cost. As the ship powered up, a sudden alert blared through the cabin. Kyle's eyes snapped open, voice tense. They've breached the sanctuary's outer defenses. More enemies are coming, stronger, faster. Ethan clenched his fists. We don't have time to wait. We must launch now. Lyra nodded weakly, steeling herself. For my people. For our future. The engines roared to life, and the ship surged forward, breaking through the cave's mouth into the blinding light of the sun. The solar crucible was beyond anything Ethan had imagined. Waves of radiant energy crashed around them, heat so intense it felt like it could melt their very souls. But the ship's shields held, a fragile bubble of safety amidst the inferno. Lyra's eyes fluttered closed, the infection battling furiously against the cold metal and Ethan's fading warmth. We're close, she whispered. The element is near. Navigating through solar storms and plasma currents, they approached a floating crystalline structure, the elemental core. It pulsed with pure solar energy, a shimmering gem suspended in the sun's corona. Ethan's breath caught. This was the source they needed. Lyra struggled to her feet. I must retrieve it. No, Ethan said firmly. I'll go. She looked at him with tears. You don't understand. It's the sun that hurts me. I can survive. They're better than you. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we do it together. The retrieval was a trial by fire. Outside the ship, Ethan donned a protective suit, but the heat was unforgiving. Every step toward the elemental core felt like a step closer to death. Lyra's presence was a beacon in the chaos, her strength pushing Ethan forward. He reached the core, his hands trembling as he grasped the shimmering element. Suddenly, a violent solar flare erupted, sending waves of energy crashing through the corona. Ethan shielded the core, struggling to maintain his grip. Inside the ship, Lyra's voice echoed through the comms, strained and desperate. Ethan, hurry! With a final burst of strength, he clutched the element and sprinted back, flames licking at his suit. He collapsed into the ship just as the flare passed, gasping for breath. Back inside, Lyra took the elemental core, placing it in the ship's repair chamber. The ancient machines hummed, light flooding the room as the shield system began to restore. Ethan held Lyra close, feeling her pulse steady, the burning in her skin fading. But as relief washed over them, an urgent message blinked on the screen. Another fleet approaching, larger and more heavily armed than before. Kyle growled, eyes dark with fear. They won't stop until the shield is destroyed and Lyra is dead. Ethan looked at Lyra, determination burning in his eyes. Then we fight. For her. For all of them. Cliffhanger. As the enemy fleet closes in, Lyra's skin suddenly glows brighter than ever before, not with pain, but with a strange new power. Ethan realizes the infection might be evolving into something unexpected, something that could change the course of everything. The awakening of the solar bond, the enemy fleet loomed like a dark storm on the horizon of space, their sleek warships cutting through the void with lethal precision. Ethan stood on the bridge of the ancient ship, the elemental core pulsating softly beneath the surface, its energy slowly stabilizing Lyra's failing shield. Lyra sat nearby, her body glowing faintly, no longer flickering in pain but radiating, a strange, radiant light that seemed to dance just beneath her translucent skin. Ethan watched her, a mix of awe and dread tightening his chest. "What's happening to you?" he asked quietly. Lyra's eyes, deep pools of alien blue, met his. The infection. It's changing. It's no longer just a disease. It's merging with the solar energy from the core. I can feel it, awakening something inside me. Kyle, leaning against the console, frowned. That could be dangerous, or it could be our last hope. Before Ethan could respond, the ship's alarms blared violently. Enemy fighters had broken through their outer defense drones and were closing in fast. "Battle stations," Ethan commanded, gripping the railing. "Prepare to engage." The first wave of fighters swarmed around the ship like deadly hornets. Laser blasts erupted in brilliant streaks, lighting up the darkness. Ethan's hands flew over the controls, maneuvering the ship with desperate precision. Lyra rose unsteadily, her glow intensifying. "I need to help." Ethan shook his head. "You're still weak." "No," she insisted. "The core's energy, it's bonded with me. I can wield it." Before he could stop her, Lyra stepped out onto the ship's outer platform. Her form shimmered as solar energy surged around her, forming a radiant shield that deflected incoming blasts. Kyle gasped. "She's using the sun itself as a weapon." The enemy fighters hesitated, then redoubled their attacks. Back inside, Ethan watched anxiously as Lyra floated in space, her energy forming blazing arcs that tore through the enemy ships with dazzling power. But each use of her power drained her rapidly, and Ethan saw the strain in her face. "Come back inside," he shouted through the comm. Lyra shook her head. "Not yet. This is our chance." The battle raged on, both sides taking heavy damage. The enemy flagship, a monstrous vessel cloaked in dark energy, approached with terrifying speed, its weapons locked on the ancient ship. Kale frowned. "They're aiming for the core," Ethan cursed. "If they destroy it, we're finished." Suddenly the ship lurched violently as a massive blast hit the hull. Lights flickered, systems faltered. "Hull breach in Sector 7, the AI announced. "Structural integrity failing," Ethan's heart pounded. "We need to seal it, now!" Lyra's glowing form reappeared at the airlock, her eyes blazing. "I'll help." With a wave of her hand, solar energy flared, sealing the breach with a shimmering barrier. Ethan stared in disbelief. "How are you doing that?" he whispered. Lyra's voice was soft but steady. "The core's energy. It's part of me now. I'm becoming more than I ever imagined." As repairs began, Ethan noticed something else. Her body was changing. Where her skin once flickered painfully, it now shone with a golden hue, like molten metal kissed by the sun. "Lyra, you're becoming something new," he said cautiously. She smiled faintly. "Maybe it's what my people needed all along." The ship steadied, systems stabilizing under her influence. But the enemy was relentless. The flagship unleashed a devastating beam, aimed straight at the ship's heart. "Brace for impact," Ethan shouted. The beam struck, and for a moment everything went dark. When the light returned, Lyra stood firm, radiant and unyielding. The beam's energy shattered against her shield, then dissipated. Kyle stared, breathless. "She's a living solar fortress." Ethan reached for her hand. "You saved us." Lyra's eyes glistened. "Now, we save the sanctuary and our future." But even as hope bloomed, a new alert flashed. Multiple enemy ships warping in from beyond. Kyle's voice was grim. "This is just the beginning. Their full fleet is arriving." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we prepare for the fight of our lives." Lyra squeezed his hand, her radiant energy pulsing with fierce determination. "We'll face it together." Cliffhanger. As the enemy fleet closes in for a final assault, Lyra's solar power surges uncontrollably, threatening to consume her and everything around them. Ethan must find a way to anchor her before the power destroys them all, the human touch that changed the universe. The elemental core throbbed beneath the ship like a beating heart, its radiant energy now entwined irrevocably with Lyra's alien form. Outside, the enemy fleet amassed like a cosmic storm, their dark silhouettes blotting out the stars. But inside the ship, a far more dangerous battle raged, the one for Lyra's very soul. Lyra's body glowed fiercely, brighter than ever. Before, solar energy swirling chaotically around her. Each pulse sent tremors through the ship's hull, threatening to tear them apart. Ethan stood by her side, fear and hope warring within him. "Lyra, you need to control it. You're burning out." She shook her head, her voice strained but determined. "I can't. The energy, it's too much. It wants to consume me." Kale, monitoring the ship's sensors, cut in sharply. "If she loses control, the core could overload and trigger a chain reaction. It'll obliterate everything within a light year." Ethan swallowed hard. There has to be a way to stop it. As Lyra convulsed with radiant power, Ethan did the only thing that made sense. He reached out, placing his hand on her glowing arm. A jolt of warmth surged between them, unlike anything he'd ever felt before. The solar energy flickered, wavering like a candle flame in the wind. Lyra's eyes locked onto his, wide with surprise. "What are you doing?" "Trust me," Ethan whispered. He closed his eyes and focused on the simple, undeniable truth. Her alien physiology might be powered by the sun, but her heart was human, and sometimes humanity was the strongest force in the universe. Slowly, the wild energy began to subside, drawn to the steady warmth of Ethan's touch. The cores throbbing, though dimmed, sinking to their combined heartbeat. Lyra's breath steadied, and for the first time since the infection she smiled. "You saved me." Ethan smiled back, voice firm. "We saved each other." Outside, the enemy flagship prepared to deliver a final, devastating strike. The elemental core's energy was their only defense and their only weapon. Ethan took command, channeling the core's power through Lyra, who now stood as both beacon and shield. The ship surged forward, radiant light bursting from every surface, blinding the enemy fleet. The flagship fired, but this time the beam struck an impenetrable shield of solar energy, reflected back with overwhelming force. The enemy flagship exploded in a blaze of cosmic fire. The remaining ships hesitated, then fled into the darkness. As silence fell, Ethan looked at Lyra. No longer just an alien, no longer just a survivor. She was a symbol of unity, of hope. "Your people sent you here for a reason," Ethan said softly. Lyra nodded. "To find strength in the unexpected, in humanity." Months later, on the sanctuary planet bathed in gentle sunlight, Lyra and Ethan stood side by side before a gathering of humans and aliens alike. "The sun's deadly rays once threatened me," Lyra said, her voice steady. "But it was a human touch that saved me, that saved us all." The crowd erupted in cheers. "Lesson. In a universe vast and unknown, it is not just power or technology that defines survival. It is connection, the simple, profound bond of empathy, trust, and understanding between beings. Humanity's greatest strength lies not in its weapons or machines, but in its heart. When light meets warmth, when alien meets human, miracles happen. The end.